Good evening, good afternoon. I'm going to stand back and take my mask off so that the folks at home can hear what I'm saying as well. But really appreciate you guys coming out tonight. Appreciate the folks at home tuning in to our first #Common Community event for the 2021-2022 year. Today we're going to be talking about understanding and coping with stress and anxiety. For those of you at home, don't worry if you can't see and read everything that's on the presentation here. There is a copy of this presentation on our social worker website at the amherstk12.org district website. So you can find it there, click on it. It should open up. You'll have access to all the live links, the videos. You can access it either during the presentation or after. For those of you that are here, you'll get the full advantage of seeing it here live. It's so exciting for everyone. My name is Sarah Walker. I'm the Director of Student Services for the district. Very excited this year because we have some new partnerships with a few more mental health agencies that have come into our district. We've got Ohio Guidestone working with us this year, as well as New Leaf Counseling. So in a moment, I would like to introduce our presenters. If you guys would like to all come up here so we can see your faces and get some names with your faces. First, we have Katie Kirschbaum, who is our new district social worker. Chandler Kramer is the guidance counselor at Nord. And we have Morgan Blair, who is here from New Leaf. She's got some pamphlets here on the table if you guys want any to pick up on your way out the door. And Jill Majorca, who is one of our other district social workers. So now you can stop hearing from me and actually listen to the people that you want to listen to tonight. So thank you, ladies.
All right, well, welcome. Like Ms. Walker said, I'm Katie Kirschbaum. I am the new social worker. I'm partnering with Jill to hopefully bring you guys lots of good stuff, lots of resources, lots of assistance where we can. But today we're talking about stress and anxiety and just understanding it and coping with it, and hopefully you guys can leave here with some extra tools in your toolbox to help you with yourselves and with your teens or kids. So even the most chill person in the world experiences stress on a daily basis. We've experienced it from the day that we were born. It's everywhere. So we can't avoid stress. It's just there. And our bodies were created so awesomely so that we can deal with stress. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that today. During this training, we are going to, as you see, we're going to define stress and anxiety, what they are, including debunking some of the common myths that you'll hear about stress and anxiety. We're going to talk about the science behind stress and anxiety and why we respond the way that we do. And that part I love because I'm kind of a toddler. I like to ask the question, why? And the cool part about that is that now that I'm an adult, I can actually look into it and figure out why. So we're going to go into that, and I love that part. You guys might hate it, but I love it. So we are also going to review some of the ways that you can identify stress and anxiety, what they look like in you or your student, and we're going to talk about how to recognize when stress and anxiety are a problem. And then lastly, like I said, we're going to give you guys some tools to put in your tool belts so that you guys can leave here with something to use when you're starting to feel that way. Something that you can also walk through with your kids. So that all of it's pretty easy to understand. We just want to make sure that you leave here with something. So now that you know what you guys are in for, we are going to, oh wait, hold on. I can't forget this. This is my favorite meme when it comes to stress because I don't know about you, this is how I feel every day. So I'm just sitting in a room that's on fire and it's fine. It's fine. It's all good. The room's just burning around me. So this is my visual of what I feel like when I'm stressed. It's good. So I'm going to have you guys do something when it comes to debunking the myths. And so I want you guys to participate. So I want you to raise your hand if a statement that I read, you believe it to be true. And it's okay if you're wrong. It's totally fine because they're common myths, they're common misconceptions. And so I want you guys to be as honest as you can about what you think about it. I'm not gonna ask you guys to stand up or do anything like ridiculous, do the hokey pokey. The extroverts would love that. Introverts are probably dying inside a little bit, like, please don't fall on me. And they're not gonna see much, so you guys are good. So we know, raise your hand if you think it's true. Leave your hand down if you don't agree with the statement. So we're gonna start off. So the first one, stress is the same for everyone. Do you guys think that's true or false? All right, everybody's down. So we're in agreement. Okay, so you are right. It is false. We don't all experience stress the same way. It is different for everyone. The next one is stress is bad for you. Okay. So we have every hand raised. Stress is bad for you. And that's false because stress is not always bad for you. Stress is something that we, like I said, we experience it daily, and a little bit of stress can help keep us in balance. So we're going to talk about that a little bit. What's important is how we manage the stress. If we can't successfully manage the stress, that's when it's bad for us. That's when, like, physically you start feeling the things that stress makes us feel. So the next one, stress is everywhere and you can't do anything about it. True or false? All right, one true. And that's true. Yeah, it's like I said, stress is everywhere. You can't do anything about stress. What we can do is plan our life around it so that we're not overwhelmed by it. We're just trying to teach ourselves how to manage the stress. Stress is everywhere. The most popular stress-reducing techniques are the best. True or false? We're going to go with false. Because it's not just like stress looks different on everybody. It's not a one-size-fits-all approach on how we deal with our stress. Not everybody can do the same things and bring themselves back down to normal. It just looks different for everyone. The last one, no symptoms, no stress. So if you don't see symptoms, the person must not be stressed out. True or false? We're going with false. Okay, so it is false. Just because you don't have symptoms doesn't mean that you're not experiencing stress. So stress is, like I said, it's all around us. To add like a side note to that, if you're masking your symptoms, which is different than no symptoms. So if you're masking your symptoms with medication or self-medication, you're going to miss the signals that your body's trying to give you that you need to reduce that stress. And so if your body and your mind, if you will put a strain on your body and your mind if you are masking those things. So if you are feeling anxious, run down, overwhelmed, disorganized, those are kind of symptoms that you're going to see from the masking of that. So let me go back to here. So now we've talked about, we're like stress experts. You guys rock that. So now we're going to talk about what defining it. Like, what does stress mean? What does anxiety mean? So there's like a Webster's dictionary, but we're not going to talk about that one. So stress is a normal reaction that the body has when changes occur, resulting in physical, emotional, and intellectual responses. So something happens to us and we respond to it. There's two types of stress, main types of stress. So you have the routine stress, normal everyday stress. So that's like, oh, I gotta go to school, I gotta go to work, like the normal, like we had to get here, right? Like this is routine stress. We have to pack lunches, all those things. And then stress brought on by sudden negative changes. And those are like losing your job, getting a divorce, an illness, those kind of things. So that we have our routine stress, which those are covered in there. And then we have traumatic stress. And so traumatic stress is more like, everybody would know that as PTSD. Those are things that are like major events. So things being in war, a major accident, being someplace where you might be hurt or killed or may have seen that happen. So those things are traumatic stress. So side note, not all stress and anxiety are bad, like I said, because some of it helps us. It helps keep us balanced. It helps us to realize, okay, maybe we're pushing too far, maybe we're not pushing far enough, kind of thing. Keep in mind that when it is bad, high levels of stress over long periods of time, now that can hurt you. That can be harmful for your health and your well-being. So if you see that, we'll talk more about what to do. Okay, so our stress and anxiety are the same thing. So it's easy to use these words interchangeably because, everybody experiences stress. So then when you have somebody who's stressed out, then you're like, oh, I have anxiety. Well, the truth of the matter is everybody's stressed out. Like everybody has to deal with stress, but anxiety looks a little different. So it's yes and no, because it can be interchangeable, right? Stress is more of a response to the external cause, and then anxiety is like a person's reaction to that stress. So it's more internal. So stress is what happens to you. Anxiety is how you're handling it, if that makes sense. By the way, if you guys have questions while I'm going, you can stop me and raise your hand, and I can try to answer questions, or any one of us can. So, and if I'm going too fast, you can say pump the brakes. Okay. So anxiety itself is described as a persistent feeling of apprehension or dread in situations that aren't actually threatening. And so it's that your response isn't matching what just happened to you. So the outside isn't matching the inside. Unlike stress, anxiety persists after the concern is past. So stress is everywhere with us, and we can leave it, I can leave traffic behind me and I can get out. But anxiety, it kind of lingers. It goes with you throughout the day. Okay, so now that we formally have talked about what stress and anxiety are, I kind of want to take a second to look at the numbers. I'm not a huge numbers person, but I thought it was kind of important to look at what this looks like to us. Okay, so now we have new numbers that are starting to show up. What does stress and anxiety look like in I can't even say post-COVID world, but a COVID world. So from 2019 to now, there's been an increase in mental health or anxiety disorders, right? So we can see that now we have more of a conversation because we have more going on. So I just wanted to point that out, so that is one of the things that we're seeing. There's an upswing of all of it because of the situation. There's a lot going on that people are very uncertain about, which is something that causes a lot of stress. So then we have the National Institute of Health showed us these numbers. So this is I wanted to kind of point out teens so that you guys can see kind of a snapshot of what that looks like. So 31.9% of teens have some type of anxiety disorder. 8.3 of those with an anxiety disorder have severe impairment, and then 38 are female, 26.1 are male. So, and that's just what they're reporting. So there's lots of kids in the teen category, especially, that don't get caught because they just kind of fly under the radar. They self-medicate, they cope in ways that are unhealthy. We see it as behavior. We don't see it as what's really happening. So they're not all caught in there. I'm not saying that it's huge, but I'm just saying it's not all caught. And so what then the American Psychological Association reported, and this is kind of what teens are saying, this is how stress affects them. So these are out of, I don't even know how many people, but 10% say stress causes them to get lower grades than they think they can get. 59 say balancing their activities causes stress. 40 say that they neglect home responsibilities due to stress. 37 say stress causes them to feel overwhelmed. 36 say that they feel tired because of stress. And 30 say they feel sad or depressed because of stress. And I know this was for teens, but I feel like this is me on a daily basis. And I don't want to blame everything on stress, but come on. There's some of that is very relevant to even adults. There's a lot that gets passed by because there's just not enough energy in the day. So like I said, numbers aren't really my thing, but I really do think that was important that we looked at those numbers to see. Do you guys have any questions about those? Okay, all right. So now we're going to try to understand more of the response that we have. So this is I love the science behind things. So I attribute it to a mechanic. So a mechanic if they don't know how a car runs, they might know what the problem is, but they're never gonna be able to fix it, okay? So in my opinion, it's really important to know how things are working so that we can come up with the appropriate coping strategies and skills and those kind of things that people can use to help with those kind of things. Because it makes no sense to know a problem but not really know why. So the toddler in me really likes this part. Someone once told me the madder you get or the more upset you are, the stupider you are, which I really like because stupider is not a word, and so like I'm kind of a nerd in that way. But it's really true. So that's what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about the brain and how our brain responds to things and why that's true, because it really is true. The more worked up you are, like you're just not able to think. So we have the survival brain. And the survival brain is kind of like, if we were still cavemen, this is kind of what it would look like. It's the animal brain or the survival brain. It's responsible for keeping you alive. It controls things like your heart rate, your breath, your body temperature, your sleep-wake cycles, and your movement. So it's responsible for just keeping you moving and breathing and all of those things. The emotional brain, this is the limbic system, which is the emotional brain, right? And it's the hypothalamus, hippocampus, I don't know how to pronounce it, and the amygdala. It's responsible for regulating our emotions. It sounds really small and simple because it controls things like our emotions. It's so big. It's responsible for a lot. And then we have our smart brain. This is our frontal lobe or the neocortex. This is the thinking brain or smart brain. It's responsible for higher functioning and deep thinking. It controls stuff like communication, process, reading, writing, talking, and listening, critical thinking, and problem solving. This is the part of our brain that is so important for us to be able to switch on when we're having these crises, like when we're dealing with stress. And I have a video for you that kind of explains why some of stress is not possible.
Our brain evolved to help us stay safe from danger. But our brain can't always tell the difference between danger and stress. When your brain is really stressed and thinks you're in danger, it responds by trying to help you stay safe. This is your fight, flight, freeze, and fawn response. So, if a bear wanted to eat you, you might fight the bear, run away from the bear, that's flight, freeze and hope it doesn't see you, that's your hiding response, or fawn, which is kind of like trying to convince the bear not to eat you, or sometimes being really cute, like a cute little puppy with big eyes. Oh, but I digress. So what does this have to do with anxiety? Anxiety is complex. So we're making it simple by talking about 3 parts of your brain that are involved in this stress response. The first part is your brainstem, or your survival brain. Your survival brain is responsible for your body. Things like your breath, your heart rate, movement and exercise, your sleep, and the list goes on. Basically, the stuff that helps you stay alive. The second part is your limbic system, or your emotional brain. It's responsible for your emotions. Duh. The third part of your brain is your frontal lobe. It's responsible for higher functioning thinking. Stuff like reading, writing, communicating, and solving problems. When you're stressed and your brain thinks you're in danger, it triggers the fight, flight, freeze, fawn response by sending extra energy to your survival brain and body so you can be fast and strong or run away and fight danger, and sending extra energy to your emotional brain because emotions help us decide the best way to respond. All that extra energy has to come from somewhere. your smart brain goes temporarily offline. Because if a bear was about to eat you, you wouldn't need to know how to do algebra or speak French. So this means that energy can be redirected to your survival and emotional brain. Temporarily, of course. The good news is once you're safe and calm down, everything in your brain returns to normal. We live in a world that's full of stress. So stuff like homework or fighting with friends can still trigger our fight, flight, freeze, or fawn response. Like if you had some stressful homework to do, you might get angry and irritable. That's your fight response. You might feel panicked. That's your flight response. You might procrastinate or avoid it. That's your freeze response. Or you might try to talk your way out of having to do it, either to someone else or in your head. And that is your fawn response. The good news is there are some brain hacks that can help you to calm down. Brain hack number 1. If you can calm down.
We're actually going to go into that towards the end. But I wanted you guys to get to see, like, in an Australian accent, what that looked like. And it's really cool to me. It really is true. Like, the madder you are, the stupider you are. So I want you to take that with you. Like, that is one of my favorite sayings. Because our body, it's like I just told the ladies over here, on the way here, or in between earlier today and here, I got pulled over. And I had that where my body's shaking, like, why am I freaking out about this? I'm just like, I didn't commit grand larceny or anything. Like, I just was maybe speeding a little bit. So I don't know why I was so freaked out about it, but it really is true. Like, we just have these reactions that just don't make any sense. So it's just, to me, it's a little bit strange. But it's really interesting to see why. And so if you know why, then you can okay, this is not a normal response. I need to calm down. And it kind of helps you if you can put your feet back on the ground. Your body turns off. It's problem solving and reacts with what she said. I've never heard anybody say the fawn. So I like the fight, flight, freeze, and fawn. It makes a lot of sense, especially if you have younger kids. Like, the fawn is something that they really do try. So then we're going to talk about, like I said, so now we talked about it's important to note that stress and anxiety look different on everyone. So now, after talking about why it is, now we're going to talk about what it looks like. Okay, and it's a small group, so you guys are lucky because I was going to bring this air horn. They talked me out of it. They said it's not a good idea. It's not a great idea. But I was like, hey, what's a better way to wake people up than an air horn? And then we can talk about hey, what symptoms did you feel? But we're not going to do that. So.
It's too late in the day.
Yeah, it's too late in the day. I didn't want to keep you up. I didn't want to really cause you guys to have a stress reaction. So we have common physical responses. So I'm not going to read all of them, but I'm sure we've all experienced them. Trouble sleeping, headaches, trembling, like I just said, when I was in the car and the police officer had me pulled over, I'm shaking, your heart's racing. Sometimes you feel hot and sweaty. Sometimes you feel cold and clammy. The weight loss or weight gain, I feel like that's a side effect of what you do, depending on how you cope with your stress. And then there's emotional. So some emotional symptoms or cognitive responses are being restless, being super sensitive, racing thoughts. I don't know if anybody's ever had that feeling where they just can't turn their brain off at night type of thing. Feeling insecure, nightmares, feeling sad, lack of motivation, poor concentration, preoccupation. See, all of these things can look like something else. So if you're not careful, you could just say it's something else, right? So there's forgetfulness, rigidity, perfectionism. So what one person looks like lack of motivation is another person having everything needing to be perfect. So it doesn't look the same. And it's kind of hard to catch, especially emotional. Behavioral, so you have people who avoid things. They withdraw, change their eating habits. There's a lot of arguing. People not taking care of themselves, with hygiene, skin picking, nail biting. Skin picking and nail biting, and then there's also people who will pull their hair. So they have there's different types of things that you can see happening. Teeth grinding, teeth clenching, fidgeting. I'm a fidgeter, if you can't tell, I'm just all over the place. But these are common behaviors that you see in people who are having a stress response. This is one of my favorite pictures, which is why I picked what the presentation looks like, because I think it's important to know and to remember that what you're seeing on the top, so people use the iceberg, what you're seeing on the top of the water is such a small portion of what's really happening. So when you see these behaviors in your teens or yourself or your partners, you see people who are angry or they're not sleeping, they're not focused, and you're like, what is happening with you? It's not all that. It's more everything in the bottom. And so once we can figure out that all these things on the bottom are going on, it helps us with the behavior. So understanding stress and anxiety is really important for helping with coping. Okay, so this part, you guys are probably scienced out a little bit, but I wanted to talk briefly about the things that influence our stress. So we have genetics, right? So genes, there's something that control the stress response. They keep most people on a balanced emotional level, only occasionally needing to use fight or flight. Overactive or underactive stress responses come from slight differences in genes. So if you have, I read a study, which I thought was pretty interesting, because we come from a family of kind of people who are higher when it comes to stress response. So people who have anxiety and stress and they have an enlarged amygdala, they're kind of noticing that that babies born into those families, they are also born with larger amygdalas. So they have and are ready, they're predisposed almost to how they're going to handle their stress. They have a higher stress response, which means startle response. So the amygdala controls the things like startle responses and things like that. So you have a loud noise, they're going to startle more. You have kids you see kids, we see kids in school that they have a hard time with loud noises and those kind of things. Their startle responses are just higher. So you have the genetics, you have life experiences. So strong stress reactions can sometimes be traced to traumatic events, right? People who were neglected or abused as children tend to be vulnerable to stress, just the same as an airplane crash survivor would be more prone to have a stress response, or firefighters or police officers and that kind of thing. They have kind of heightened stress responses. So why do two different people from the same family handle stress differently? It's just one of those questions that I've always wondered. So hopefully we can answer that. So temperament is one of the things that also plays into how people handle stress. So it refers to a set of traits that organize an individual's approach to the world, right? Characteristics such as activity level, approach and withdrawal, adaptability, intensity, mood, all of those things. So observing where your child is in these dimensions can adjust parenting strategies accordingly. So if you can see that there's different, we all know our kids are different. If you have more than one kid, they're all different. If you have one kid, they're different from, their neighbor. So you just adjust that accordingly based off of who they are. That's how we parent, right? So kind of figure out what kind of temperament they have. And it's really important to keep in mind that just because a parent has one temperament doesn't mean that the child has the same temperament. So we might think they're from the same family, they're all type A people. So, but it's not the case. You can have somebody who is completely chill next to a type A. And it's just kind of how families go. So adolescent development, I should say. So I have another short video for you guys.
Teens and risk-taking. What did you think of when I said that?
Most people think of house parties and binge drinking, smoking weed under the bleachers, unsafe sex, or fighting and violence.
In other words, a bunch of bad things. But really, growing up is nothing but a series of risks that we take. From our first steps and our first words to learning to ride a bike or asking someone out on a date. Each time we try something new, we're taking a risk, and we need support to navigate these risks well.
For parents, teachers, counselors, and the other adults who work with young people, every day presents a new opportunity for us to support healthy risk-taking.
That means being there to answer questions without stigma or shame, supporting us when we try on new values or identities, letting us make mistakes so we can learn from them, celebrating when we succeed. Most of all, adults who are the best at encouraging healthy risk-taking and growth, they listen.
And listening is key because young people know their day-to-day world better than anyone else. Trusting them to make their own choices is critical for building their confidence and life skills. Without taking risks, teens have trouble developing into capable adults. It's everyone's job to make sure that they're supported and safe so they can grow up to be healthy, not just physically, but emotionally, socially, and more.
Given that society thinks of risk-taking so negatively, it makes sense that adults want to limit or even get rid of risks altogether, but that's not what we need. Yes, there are unhealthy risks that all of us need to avoid: drug and alcohol use, unsafe sex, and violence. But healthy risks, good risks, the kind that challenge us to expand our horizons, those are so important for our learning, for growth.
Learn more about promoting positive adolescent health.
So you might think that's kind of weird. Why did you put that in there, this statement, right? Why would you do that? Well, I think that it's really important to understand like what they're growing, like how a teen is growing is really important to understand, and that's one of the ways that they're growing. They have to like explore their world. They're learning new things. Their brains are growing exponentially in the period of time that they have from 13 to 25 is when their brains like really just like go out of control. So it almost seems like they're out of control. I don't have a teen yet, but for those of you that do, God bless you. So adolescent development. So this is when they're moving from concrete to abstract thought. They're going from, well, because mom and dad said so, to, okay, well, what does the world look like to me? So they're kind of exploring their world. So physical changes, they can also play a role in this. Hormones can affect adolescents' moods and heighten their emotional responses. And the heightened stress response for adolescents is compared to adults. So I also want to say with that video, we're talking about like letting our kids take risks, which also is a lot of stress for us. So it's a two-way road here. So if I was talking to adolescents, okay, like, yes, we want you to take it, but like for you guys, that is also another way that you have to learn how to manage your stress, because if we're supposed to let them go and do and hope that they're safe, there is some stress behind that. So ways to help. What can you do? Keep the lines of communication. This all sounds really easy. So when I say it, I want you to know that I realize that it is not really easy. Keeping lines of communication open, modeling positive coping. So this is like when I'm stressed, so making sure they know, like I'm stressed right now, and this is what I'm doing. I'm not always the best at because I'm human, but telling them that this is what I'm doing. So showing them like I'm stressed out, I'm gonna go take a walk, I'm gonna take a minute, mom needs a minute kind of thing. Walk the middle ground, so this one's hard. To me, this teeter-totter right here is really hard. Don't downplay your child's concerns, like saying that's ridiculous, that would never happen, you're fine, it's all in your head, but don't overplay it either. Okay, so you're gonna, that's terrible, let me help you fix it. Let me fix it for you. You have to try to resist the urge to reassure. So that's really hard because as a parent, you just want to tell them that it's going to be okay, which in that moment, like it might feel good to say, but they need to know like, this is really what you're going through. This is how we're going to deal with it. And then it might be okay. But right then to them, by saying something like it's okay, almost puts it in the downplay category. So helping your child identify what they're feeling before just saying it's going to be okay. And then do help them with problem solving and implementing coping skills, like some of the stuff that we're going to teach you guys. So one of the questions that parents always ask is like, am I to blame? Like, did I cause this? Like, so I did say, like, some babies are born with enlarged amygdalas, but there's people who have enlarged amygdalas who are adults that can go through life and be totally fine. So it's not, it doesn't cause, just because someone has that doesn't mean they have anxiety, they just deal with stress differently. So it's hard to know exactly where anxiety is coming from. Like I said, it's different from stress. We know where stress is coming from, it's just all around us. We're born into it, like, it's hard to say. So it's more helpful to focus on helping your child cope rather than worrying about if you were the cause of it. So just forget that question. Stop asking yourself that question and move on to the next thing. It's like, okay, so what can we do? So another thing that I really like to do is reframing it. So reframe this worry as working as a team with your child to tackle the anxiety rather than focus on blaming. So like in our family, I always say like, it doesn't matter whose fault it is. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Because whenever there's something that happens, it's always easier to say, well, you're the one who did this to me, or I must have been the one who did this to you. So it's easier to place blame on somebody instead of just accepting it for what it is and working with what you've got. If you have anxiety yourself, it can actually be beneficial for your child to see that anxiety is common and to have positive coping skills. So that's why I want to say self-care. When you're a parent, you need to take good care of yourself. And I know it's easier said than done, but it is so important. I can't stress that enough. It can have a positive impact on you and your family and your kids. So if they're struggling with anxiety and it's something you struggle with too, if you can put some healthy coping skills in your toolbox as well, then it helps them to encourages them to do the same thing. So practicing self-care is one of the ways that parents can stay mentally and emotionally prepared to help their children and to cope with the ups and downs that come with parenting. So like I just said, the risk-taking. Here's some suggestions. Like I said, not everything works the same for everybody. Where somebody might want to sit down and journal at night, another person might rather burn the journal as a way to deal with stress and anxiety. So you can take a couple of minutes for yourself, say no to the extra responsibilities. That is something that I think parents have a really hard time doing. You want to say yes. It's your natural inclination to say yes. You just want to. But say no. Take some time, say no. Pick up an old hobby, pick up a new hobby, something that you can get joy from. And then also on our social work webpage. So all of this stuff, like Ms. Walker said, is on our social work webpage on the Amherst, off of the Amherst page. So on there is a self-assessment that you can print off, that you can take regularly if you just want to check in with yourself. Am I at a normal level of stress, or is this over? Some people can identify it and some people can't. So this, until people can identify, like this is not normal, it's a really good tool to get there. To say, okay, I didn't really think I was there, but this is saying these like quick check-in questions are kind of showing me like maybe I do need to do something about this. So there's just some tools that you guys can use for some self-care, which I consider self-care a little bit different. It's kind of the same thing as the coping strategies, but self-care is just about you. It's just whole body you, whatever helps you. So next we have Chandler Kramer, who's going to come up here. She is our Nord school counselor, and she was going to talk to you guys a little bit about the school piece. So like, what are some things in schools, and what are some things that you guys can do?
All right. All right, well, thank you guys again for being here with us tonight. We are very excited. As Mrs. Kirschbaum said, I am Mrs. Kramer. I'm the school counselor at Nord. So I just kind of wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about what's happening and what I'm seeing related to stress and anxiety in schools. And as we just talked about in the presentation, it is super typical, and we see it every day at the school. We all go through it. We all experience stress and anxiety. And I will say, like, in the schools, I feel like there's a lot of ups and downs throughout the school year. So like we start off the school year and a lot of students are feeling stressed and are anxious for the school year to start. They're anxious maybe about new teachers, a new building, meeting new friends, finding out where their classes are, maybe switching classes. So that we're up, so our anxiety is increased at the beginning of the year. And then we start to go down a little bit when we kind of like level out, like we're meeting new friends, we're learning where our classes are, we're getting used to our teachers and kind of our routine at school. And then I think we go into like winter break, and then when we transition back to school again, I feel like our anxiety and our students kind of spikes up again, right? So we're transitioning back to school. Maybe things happened over Christmas break. We're experiencing maybe different friendships, things like that. I feel like, so our anxiety is curving back up. And then we kind of decline again, and we adjust back to school, things feel more normal, and then we kind of spring hits and we kind of go back up. It's the end of the school year. We're excited for summer, maybe sad about leaving school, leaving friends, maybe thinking about transitioning to a new building in the fall. So our anxiety kind of throughout the school year, I definitely see it in our students going up and down throughout the school year. And I will say, so when we talked about routine stress, I see that a lot in our students, and I had this yesterday. I was feeling stressed out about talking to you guys today. So in knowing that, I want you guys to like recognize that like that little piece of like me just saying like I felt stressed yesterday about talking to you guys for like just these few minutes. You're like probably thinking like, this is no big deal. Like you're just talking to us for a handful of minutes. So I want you guys to remember that so I'm going to talk about the common stressors that I see at school. So as I just talked about, like the new things at the beginning of the school year that I definitely saw, and I'm still kind of seeing it as we're a few weeks in, but like in a new building, new friends, new teachers, and then now we're kind of transitioning, and so like remembering all your materials and bringing them to class, or homework, or relationship with friends. We might see that as something simple, or it's like, why are you anxious about that? Why are you stressed out about your homework? Where to our students, that is a big deal. That is something that they are stressed out about and they are worried about. So I think it's just super important to kind of like put yourself in their perspective. And then some different techniques for coping with these things that our students are experiencing. Our schedules and plans, I feel like, is a big one. Kind of letting them be involved in their schedule, in their plans, and when these things change, which happens often, right? Plans change, that's just how life is, right? And I think just making students aware of that and making your child feel comfortable in like, this is changing, but we're gonna make you aware of it as soon as we can, and this is how we're gonna go about it. And kind of just keeping them in the loop, I feel like, is a big deal too. And then, so Mrs. Mallorca is also gonna talk about this, but I feel like just taking a break and maybe taking a few breaths and taking kind of a timeout. So she's gonna go over some like yoga for classrooms, which can also be transitioned into the home, and you could use it there as well. And I feel like also getting a good night's sleep is really big for our students. I see a lot, like I hear a lot like, oh, I didn't sleep last night, I was really worried about this. Or I didn't sleep last night, so now I'm worried about this. So I feel like that is also a key in our puzzle as well. And as we talked about, stress being typical and it happens to all of us, maybe every day, maybe every week. And it's important to know these coping strategies, but it's also important to recognize when it is being too much. When we see our students always being stressed out, you know, like different experiences and situations, but also when that is heightened and when we're feeling it a lot more. I feel like it's important to also be aware, so we can maybe reevaluate our coping strategies to be appropriate for all of our students. All right, I'm gonna turn it back over. Thank you, everyone.
Which is, so, thank you. So that goes into like the next thing almost perfectly. So does anybody have any questions up to this point? Okay. So next we're gonna talk about the coping strategies. So talk about the coping strategies. And there's all different types. Like I said, stress, anxiety looks different. So the dresses that help us fix it also look different. And they look different for everybody. So there's two types of coping strategies. There's problem focused, and problem focused is like coping with stress in practical ways, trying to remove the stress with problem solving. So like if you have a problem at work, then you go to your HR department. So you're trying to just remove that stress. Like here's the problem, let's fix it. And then you go to emotion focused, which aims to reduce the negative emotions associated with stress, which what we said before about anxiety, it's the internal, so that's what we're talking about. So emotion focused is like dealing with the anxiety, like the stress that is born, right? So aims to reduce the negative emotions associated with stress, best used when individual has little control over the situation. So they might not have control over the situation, but we're trying to teach them how to have control over their thoughts and their minds and their bodies. So just doing the different practices that we're going to go through. So and these are some of the practices. So we have this chart. Again, this stuff is all on the webpage, so you can check it out. So we're not going to go through all of these on the thing, but there are a lot of things to look at here for individual, self-soothing. So self-soothing, some of the techniques that they have there is using your senses. So you're using all 5 of your senses to try to bring yourself back around to calm down. So you're like an example of touch would be taking a warm bubble bath filled with Epsom salt to relax your muscles. Tasting would be drinking hot herbal tea. Smell, aromatherapy, or using essential oils. Sometimes it could just be a candle, whatever helps you. Sight, distracting yourself with your favorite movie or TV. Sound, listening to your favorite music, or like a sound machine, or right now going to the beach, listening to the actual beach. Those are all good ones. And then there's distraction. So distraction is one that we will do quickly. So if it's something that we just need to like try to move to see if we can't just get a kid to kind of change what they're focusing on. So this is kind of what good distraction techniques. So counting things that are around you, saying, hey, like, let's count all the orange chairs in the room. So like trying to get them to focus on something else besides what is totally sending them in a spiral. Doodling or coloring, sometimes that works for people. Sometimes they're just not there. Counting backwards, focusing on your breathing. So doing like box breathing, we're going to talk a little bit more about breathing too. So breathing in for 4, holding for 4, and then breathing out for 4. So just teaching like breathe in, breathe out. So imagine that you're also like imagining techniques, so like visualizing. So imagining that you're someplace that's safe, that feels safe, because even if they are safe, say they're in school, they're totally safe. They don't feel safe for whatever reason. So just having them have that spot, let's imagine it, let's visualize it together. Opposite action is my favorite. Like Chandler said, like one of the things that I don't mind public speaking, but I don't love it. It does give me a little bit of stress. And so I use opposite action on this. This is something that I try to push on everybody whenever I can. So it's figuring out what the emotion that you want to regulate, right? So you name it out loud. I don't want to be stressed, or I don't want to be afraid. So that's kind of what I would say is the fear of public speaking. So I don't want to be afraid. So then you check the facts first to see if your emotion fits the facts. Figure out what your action or urge or emotional urge is. What is the current emotion urging you to do? And then tap into your mind to see if your emotion's doing what it's supposed to be doing. Okay, if it doesn't fit all those things, then you need to figure out the opposite action, right? Just determine what the opposite action of your original urge is and do that. Which again, seems easy, but it really does put you through, like, you have to do it, right? So do what you're afraid to do and do it over and over again. Just do it afraid, right? So like acting in the opposite Sometimes means simply approaching the things that you're afraid of and just doing it. Take part in the things that give you a sense of autonomy. So these things will help you with with doing the opposite action techniques. And then we have emotional awareness, is just recognizing your emotions. They call it emotional intelligence. So like I was reading, the more emotionally intelligent a person is, the more they're able to handle their stress, which it really does show us why our teens struggle with that. Because being emotionally aware is not something I think that's innate, it's something that you have to learn. So just being aware of your body and aware of your emotions and your thoughts and those kind of things. So recognizing it, know what triggers you, cognitive reframing. Like one of my favorite things to do, which irritates people, like when I'm substitute teaching, is get to. So like the kids are like, I don't want to do that. And I have them say, okay, well, you don't, like it's not something you have to do, it's something you get to do. So then they have to say it, word it in a way like, oh, I get to do my homework, or I get to, do these things. And so just having them reframe it and look at it differently. It's not something I have to do, it's something I get to do. So I call it my get tos. And then journaling, exercise, therapy, meditation, all of the good things. And then we have Miss Jill Majorca, who's going to come up and talk to us about some different techniques. I kind of lumped them all together under mindfulness, but she's got a lot of good stuff for us. So,
Can I just click through?
yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
Hey guys, I think there's some familiar faces. Is it better can you understand me better if I take that off? Okay. I am the other social worker, and one of the things that I did when the world went sideways is I took a yoga for classrooms training. So what else am I gonna do? I'm home, I have some time, I'm going to do some yoga. And it was super cool. And it's not something that is just here, it's done all over the place. And yes, you can get a free download if you choose to do that as well. But you can, it's in schools all around the United States, probably in some other countries too. It's a pretty prominent and prevalent thing, and there's a lot of science behind actually doing yoga and breathing. Does anybody here do any yoga and breathing on their own time? Not so much. Awesome, you guys will get to do some today. There are some benefits specifically to doing it at school. And then I think yoga specifically, when you think about stress and anxiety, if you think about maybe just what's going on in your body when you were stressed and anxiety. So if you all just take a moment, don't get too far back into that stressful moment, but just what happens to you when you're feeling stressed, right? We talked about those physical symptoms. Sometimes it looks differently for different people. Maybe your stomach feels queasy, you're feeling hot, your muscles get tense. Usually we can relate that to a physical sensation in our body. We have stress about all kinds of different things, like we've already talked about. Work, life, relationships, health, driving, any of those things. Our minds are usually connected with respect to our stress and anxiety symptoms. And so I think like if you put all of that together, when we take care of our bodies and what our bodies are telling us, when we feel tension, when we get headaches, when we need sleep, when we're hungry, right? We're kind of taking care of our stress and anxiety also. So that's kind of, I guess, my selling point to kind of walk you through if you choose today. You don't have to, but the camera is definitely not on you guys, so don't feel pressure at all around that. Is this an okay space if I sit down? Am I still okay in the home viewing section? Awesome. So I will just walk you through. I'm going to sit over, can you click through for me? Okay. So I am going to, is 15 minutes still about okay if we play around with time? Does that feel okay? All right, so I promise you this won't go any longer than 15 minutes if you choose to do the play along section of our time today. So these are some things that I have done in the schools all last year and this year. We did it with teachers, we did it with students at all the buildings, so from the Powers Elementary School all the way up to the high school. And I do think that it was well received. I think that kids could start to feel some of how it helped them feel differently in their bodies from doing some of this stuff. And they actually kind of liked it. You know, I think sometimes I even had adolescent boys come up to me at the junior high and was like, hey, that kind of felt good. So don't tell anybody, but I think it's okay. And so if you like to try with me, I'll take you through some poses. We're not going to do down dog. We're not going to lie on the ground. I promise you that. So this first one is just called sitting mountain. And we're just going to kind of, you're already there. We're kind of sitting in the chair, kind of feeling supported by the chair. Our feet are flat on the ground. And we're just kind of thinking about sort of being a mountain. We've all seen mountains. So we're sitting in our chair kind of nice and tall. We're kind of like paying attention to our posture. You can just kind of let your hands rest in your lap. And then you can either close your eyes if that feels comfortable to you. Options to kind of look down or just find something to look at, like a focus. I always tell the kids, don't like stare at someone because that's creepy, but find something else to look at. So we're in kind of this sitting mountain pose. We're kind of sitting up nice and tall. We're going to take just some nice, easy breaths. I'm just kind of noticing everything that's going on in our body. Okay, so we'll take a big breath in together. Go ahead and let that go. Take another big breath in and let that go. We're going to do just a couple of stretches here, adding on to that. The first one we'll do, we're just going to take our head and on an inhale, exhaling, we're just going to kind of nod that down. So we're just going to let our chin kind of drop down to the chest and just kind of feeling that sensation on the back of the neck. Anything like mine might be a little tight. Just kind of noticing how the body is feeling. Taking a big breath in, kind of lifting the head back up. On the exhale, we're just going to kind of tip that over to the side. Just kind of feeling that stretch on the other side of the neck, right? Just noticing all of that stuff that's happening in the body. Might feel a little tight. Take a big breath in. Just going to tip that over to the other side. Kind of noticing how that feels too. One side might feel different than the other. It's pretty normal. Take a big breath in. Kind of bringing that back up to the middle. We're going to add just a couple of other things here. We're going to add some shoulder rolls and then kind of an arm raise. So we're going to take a big breath in on the inhale. We're just going to roll our shoulders forward, just kind of feeling that sensation in our shoulders, noticing if our body's tight or stiff in any places, kind of rolling that back. We'll go ahead and breathe in and up. Scrunching them up, that's kind of my official word for this. I don't know if that's possible. But exhaling, rolling that back down. Do that one more time, kind of breathing in and up. Exhale, rolling that back down. Just kind of noticing how that feels in the body. Noticing if there's any looseness, more looseness than doing that. Noticing where our body is kind of warmer or feeling a little bit more engaged. I'm going to add one more thing here. We're going to breathe in. We're going to stretch our arms all the way up. So breathing in all the way up. Really kind of stretching their arms nice and tall and long. Not knocking out our neighbor. And then we'll take a big breath in. We're going to exhale to the side, just a little bit, kind of feeling that stretch on the side body. Inhale back to the middle. Exhale to the other side. Once more to the middle. This exhale, we can take our arms down. So that's just a quick stretch. I usually have the kids, we probably didn't do that for any more than a couple of minutes. We just moved a couple of parts of the body, and then just noticing how our body is feeling now, right? From the time that we started to where we are now, you might be noticing a little bit of difference, not major sensations, but maybe it feels a little bit looser in our neck, maybe on our body, maybe even kind of doing something with our brain or body gives our head a little bit of a space to kind of relax. We'll go through just a couple of breathing activities. This one is called balloon breath. I like this one because typically when we breathe, we're shallow breathers and we're breathing into the top part of our lungs, which really usually only a quarter of our lung capacity, but our lungs actually go from like here all the way down here. So when we think about breathing, if we just take a normal breath, we're chest breathing. Balloon breath is a strategy that can help to really paying attention to our breath and thinking about breathing to the capacity. It's a very relaxing activity to do. It can help us sleep if anybody ever has trouble sleeping. So the way we do this, if you feel comfortable, if you'd like to try, you can place a hand at the top of your chest and one on your belly. And we're going to take some big breaths. And the goal here is really trying to move the air down into our belly. So we kind of want our bottom hand to be moving more than the top one. So we'll try this together. Again, kind of sitting up nice and tall, giving our bodies lots of space. So take a big breath in and out. Take another big breath in and out. On the next breath, I want you to think about breathing in into the sides of your lungs. So take another big breath in. Please trying to expand and out. Maybe one more big breath in and out. And that's something you can play around with, your kids can play around with. That's an activity. You could bring a little visualization in. Everybody likes to have balloons. They can even have a color for their balloon. Balloon breath is a nice activity to really just focus on our space and really trying to expand and take bigger breaths. Let's just do the top one. So sometimes with breathing activities, having something to look at while you're doing those things can be helpful. So this is, you can find this on Google and it will be linked to our page as well. So this is a breathing activity that we're going to be following the shape, and as it's expanding, we'll be thinking about taking a breath in, and as it's going down, we'll be exhaling. So we're matching our breath to the shape and growing. So it'll be a little hypnotic. So if we just take a minute to kind of watch that, taking a big breath in and letting it go. Taking another breath in and out. We'll do that just one more time. And out. Make sure if you arrow past that, it'll kind of take you back through. So that's a nice one, and there's several more out there in all kinds of different shapes. If that shape is polygon is not your fave, you can find other ones. And that's kind of nice, especially for kids, to have something kind of to look at, to think about while they're doing a breathing activity, and that can be helpful as well. So if you just keep arrowing through, I think it will take you to the next. Keep going, arrow, yes, and cat stretch. When I do this at Powers, we meow, but I feel like we'll skip the meowing part of cat stretch tonight, unless anybody's really into it, and then we can do that. So cat stretch, we're in this home-based pose with sitting mountain pose. We're sitting up nice and tall, feet flat on the ground, and we take our hands in front, and we're interlacing them. We're just going to turn them inside out. And they can already get some creaks and crinks in there, right? You can already stretch out those fingers. We don't do this a whole lot. So this is another way we're just kind of taking care of our bodies. So we're going to take a big breath in and stretch the arms up overhead. So big breath in, stretch up. And then on the exhale, we're just going to kind of pull this forward and curve our back out, kind of like a C. This is where we would meow. Inhale, nice and tall. We'll do that one more time. Kind of curving our back out, stretching the arms forward, pushing that out. Nice job. We'll take another breath in, stretch up, and then you can let your arms come down. So cat stretch is a really nice stretch, and you can do this a few more times. Ooh, I felt like people liked that one. That felt good, right? It stretches out. We carry a lot of tension in our necks and shoulders, fingers too, especially because the amount of time we're on electronics and phone and kind of hunched over. So cat is a really nice stretch to kind of release some of that tension in our bodies. Also, if you think about where in your body you carry stress, it's all here, and it's here, and it's feeling tense. So that's a good place for that. Okay. Bunny breath. Bunny breath feels a little silly, but it's I've actually done this while I'm driving places. You don't have to do bunny ears unnecessarily. And this is a nice breath just to refresh, energize, shift. So even if like you have a little one and you want to kind of be playful, if they're kind of getting stuck in something, it feels like this is a good bunny breath moment. Here's how this works. So bunny breath, we're getting a lot of oxygen into the air. So we're going to take 3 quick breaths in through the nose, then we're going to breathe it all out through the mouth. So it goes like this. We're going to take 3 quicks in, big breath out, 3 quick in, big breath out. Maybe just one more in and out. Yeah, so you can automatically feel like just that kind of rush of oxygen to the brain, clears the mind. If you're driving for a long period of time, maybe you need to take some quick breaths in to energize. Bunny breath is a quick, easy breath. I love that breathing can do different things for us. It can wake us up, it can slow us down, it can relax us. So there's breathing, right? That's good stuff. I'll quit selling for me. Corkscrew is a nice twist. So we did a little stretching up here. We're going to do a little side stretching too. So we're sitting in our chair, feet flat on the ground. The way this works is that we're just going to be kind of twisting to the side. So you can use your chair to help a little bit with that. So we're going to take our rights and lefts here, right, to an opposite me. So we're going to take a big breath in. We're going to bring our left hand down on this chair and right hand on our thigh. So we're going to kind of raise that down on this twist. So we're gonna be twisting into our back shoulder. So we're gonna take a big breath in, sit nice and tall. The exhale, we're gonna turn and look over this back shoulder. Yeah, so you can feel that twist down in through your side, through your back. You can just take another breath here and out. And then you can just go ahead and come around back to the front. Now just kind of paying attention to your body. So one side right now might be feeling a little bit different. Yoga is about balancing, doing the same stretch on both sides. This side that we already twisted might feel a little warmer. Might just be noticing it's a little bit of a different sensation. So we're going to do that same thing on the other side. So we're just going to take our left hand this time. It's going to come on our right leg. And then our right hand is going to come behind us on the chair. So whichever side you didn't do, that would be a simpler way to explain it, right? So we're going to take a big breath and sit nice and tall. Then on the exhale, we're going to turn and look over this back shoulder. Right, they're just going to hold there, twist it. I know it feels a little pretzel-y. We'll take a big breath in and out. Nice job. And go ahead and untwist. And just kind of noticing that sensation in the body, feeling how that tension in the side, and just kind of noticing even that little quick stretch. We didn't spend a lot of time. That's a good one to do to release tension. Sometimes also, if anybody has struggled with making a decision, sometimes twisting poses are a good stretch to do for making decisions. Let's skip this one. Okay, so I feel like I stretched your top, I stretched your sides. We're going to stretch in the hips too. So our legs and hips, just what feels comfortable to you, but we carry a lot of tension from sitting a lot. So this is a nice stretch to do to kind of loosen up that area too. So we're just going to start, we'll take our right leg, we're just going to cross that over. So we're just going to ankle over our knee, and we're just going to kind of, like, wherever you are is okay. Our bodies all look different. So whoever feels comfortable for you in that stretch is the perfect place for you to be. So we're just going to try to take a big breath in. And the exhale gently on this knee, we're just going to think about kind of stretching that down, just kind of like expanding that down. Maybe even just sometimes pulling our leg up into this position. You can already notice that feels a little bit different for you. You go ahead and release that, take another big breath in. And on that exhale, we're just going to kind of gently push down on that leg, just kind of expanding that stretch into the hip. Nice job, go ahead and let that go. So this next inhale, on the exhale, if you like, you can go ahead and just kind of lean forward a little bit over that leg, just kind of feeling that stretch. So it's a pigeon stretch, so I feel like they're very like pompous almost, they keep their chest up. So you're thinking about really kind of keeping our chest up and open and kind of feeling that stretch into the hip and leg. Do you guys feel that? Yeah. Maybe just taking a big breath here and out. And the next inhale, go ahead and raise yourself back up. And just kind of noticing how that feels in the leg. You can go ahead and gently take that down, kind of stretch that around a little bit, wiggle it out. Kind of noticing how that leg feels, just doing that little bit of stretching. And we'll do it on the other side. Yoga's about balancing. I don't want anybody to leave here limping. That would be awful. And you might notice one side feels a little different than the other too. Very normal. One side maybe is tighter or looser than the other. Ankles over the knee. Just try to keep this bottom leg at a right angle. You guys are looking, are you sure I haven't done yoga? Because there appears to be some yoga experts and they're doing a really nice job. So we're going to take a big breath here. The exhale, we're just going to kind of stretch this knee down, kind of opening up, just kind of feeling that stretch down through your hip. Nice job. Go ahead and let that go. Inhale. Exhale, maybe try that one more time. Go ahead and let that go. This next time, we're going to take that bend. So inhale. The exhale, we're just going to kind of think about hinging forward, leaning forward, keeping the chest up, kind of stretching until you know your body will usually tell you, stop. That's the place to stop. Maybe one more breath here. And exhale, and go ahead and take that. You can let this leg come down, just kind of like noticing how that feels in the body too. Let's skip this one because I just want to do the other standing stretches. All right, so we're going to do, if people would like to join me, we're going to stand and just to do a couple of standing stretches. This first one is a standing mountain pose. And when we think about being in a standing mountain pose, like we were when we were sitting, we're really just thinking about trying to be kind of like tall and centered. Our feet are hip distance apart. we're kind of thinking about kind of lengthening up, like if there was a string kind of pulling us up towards the ceiling, kind of being nice and tall and supported. You can even kind of play it like leaning a little bit forward and back, kind of like just finding your center of balance, noticing how you can easily feel off balance, and then when you get to that place where you're, don't fall over, rooted, kind of hang there for a minute and just kind of feel that. So we're just going to kind of take our arms and kind of let those hang down, finding another spot to just rest the eyes. If you feel comfortable closing them, totally okay options. We're going to take a breath in here and out. Just kind of noticing and letting our body and mind be still. Another breath in and out. So next breath in, we're going to do our shoulders. We're going to take a breath in, raise these shoulders up, scrunching them up to the ears, and the exhale, circle that back down, kind of letting those arms come back down. One more breath here and out. I'm going to add arms to this one. So the next breath in, we're going to raise our arms all the way up. Really kind of stretching those up and nice and tall and long, so like trees on our mountains, I think about. And then we're going to take an exhale to the side, just tipping that over. Inhale back to the middle. Exhale to the other side. One more to the middle, and let those arms fall back. Nice job. Let's skip this guy. Oh, we have to get to this one now. This is a really good stretch. Even if you can't get to a place. We don't have a desk, but chairs work just fine for this. When we do a chair, you guys can move around a little bit if you have enough space and you want to try this. So again, these shoulders and the neck and the back, and I feel like we really carry a lot of tension around in these areas. So for this is called a desk puppy. So this is a stretch where we really try to loosen up this stuff, and it goes like this. So we're putting our hands on the back of the chair, and then you would just take a step back with both of your feet. So you're kind of stretching back out. When I'm going to lean forward, I kind of want to try to get my back nice and straight, and I'm going to put it right between my arms. I'm just going to kind of lean that out forward. You can drop the head even and just feel kind of that stretch on the back of the arms into your shoulders, and feeling how that stretches that all out. You don't have to hang out here too long, but we can take a big breath in and out. And then I think it's always nice to be nice to your body, so like kind of gently come back out. Anytime we do an inversion and we lean forward, just being careful when we come back up. So just kind of noticing how that feels on the back of the neck. You can do that. You can play around with that. I think that's a nice stretch to release that tension back there. Okay. Did you guys like that one? Okay. All right, washing machine.
This one's my favorite.
It's always a fan favorite with the kids too, Mrs. Walker.
I know.
Washing machine is pretty fun. And usually you see kids maybe just doing this outside, like running around, because it kind of feels good. You guys have got it. You're washing machine experts. So it's just kind of a really good thing for the brain. It feels good. There's lots of good things. I don't get too far into the brain science, Krishban, but there are benefits for crossing over the midline, like when our right side crosses over to the left side and the left side crosses over to the right side. It does good things to our brain. So this is a good thing to do if you're feeling kind of grouchy or kids are feeling grouchy. You need to kind of refresh and set. It's a really good activity to do with that. So we're just going to kind of play around the loose arms, just kind of swaying. I did this in one class, and kiddo said, no, it's really a gentle washing machine. It's not really like, no, it's not a spin. It's not like great agitation here. It's for the gentle spin cycle. Very insightful. So we're just kind of letting that shake out a little bit. You can even add some breathing here if that feels good option as well. And then we're going to kind of slow this down a little bit. I want you to pay attention to the sensations in your body. I want you to go ahead and just stop. Kind of let your arms hang. Just kind of notice what's happening in your body. You might be feeling some tingling in your arms or in your legs. That's from just that energy we created from just that little bit of movement. I always end all of my activities with this one and then the next one, which is a bird breath. So on this one, we're just going to kind of take a big breath in and raise our arms all the way up like wings. Like we're flying in. Up, and then we'll turn them out and exhale all the way down. Do that one more time. Really taking a big breath in. Up and exhaling all the way down. This is your last breath, guys, so make it a good one. Big breath in, all the way up, really fill up with all the good air. And exhaling all the way down. And there you go. That was your yoga session for the night. So if you can't get enough of that, you want some more of that, I will be uploading some pieces, parts of that you could do just one or two, even just if you have time to give yourself one little breath or one little stretch. I think that your body and your brain will thank you for that. There are some resources online that you could do lots of fun stuff, like Cosmic Kids, if you guys are fans, or I think people have a love-hate with the Cosmic Kids sometimes. There's lots of good yoga vids on there that kids really like. Go Noodle has a lot of them. Nick Jr. can even do some Paw Patrol if that's to your liking. And then for older students or adults, I'm a big fan of Yoga with Adrienne. She has a dog as well. That is right. He's delightful. And then there's an app that you can use. It's called a Calm app or a web page, and they have a lot of really cool things on there. And they also included a section on yoga or moving and strategies. That's pretty cool too. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Jill. And then we are just going to finish up with just what to do. Let's see. That's my favorite part, just so you guys know. So like I like science, but I also like action. So, so then crisis planning. So Morgan wasn't even planning on talking, but I might have her add if she wants to. So while I'm talking, you can think if you want to add anything to it. So when should you be worried about stress and anxiety, like I just put on her? Just when it's this is what people look for: duration, frequency, intensity, impairment, and functioning. Okay, so how long has it been bothering you? How often? How strong? And the impact. If any of those are like too often, too strong, like all of those things, too long, those are the things. That's when we should worry, because stress does do a lot to our body. So we have to take care of our body and our minds. So nothing's working, so what should you do? Okay, so ask if you or your child can speak to a school counselor, schedule an appointment with the child's primary care doctor or pediatrician, especially if they know your kid. There's some pediatricians that don't really get to see your kids, but if you have one that knows them well, then they'll understand a little bit more of how this is different. Schedule an appointment with a mental health provider and or doctor. And then sometimes medications are great for anxiety in conjunction with therapy. So if a child or teenager is not able to implement strategies from therapy or from like the things that we're talking about, there's all sorts of resources available online, at the library, those kind of things. There's tons of resources to help with different coping skills because, like I said, not all of us fit into one box. So even teenage boys do like yoga, but some teenage boys won't do yoga. So sometimes we have to look outside the box to see. There are additional resources that we have, like I said, on that webpage. So if you go to it, I'll click on it just so you guys can see where it takes us. So it's right here, ta-da, on the picture. But like all of this stuff is here. So you guys can take a look. We have resources from tonight, like all from the presentation, outside of the presentation. We have the presentation itself, and then we have additional ones that have been there that you might not have even known about until right now. So now you know. And the more you know. All right, so Morgan, is there anything you want to add to like crisis planning? Like what if nothing is working? Like is there something that you can think of that's outside of that?
No, I guess the biggest thing I just want to drive home is the more that you can normalize seeking out help, the better. In the same,
I like that. All right, so that's all we have. Like I said, it is available, all those resources. So I do have a page that just has those very same things that were listed in the like gray above the presentation. That's what those are. So if you go to the website, you can go there. And then there's references, which again, just so that I have them. And then last but not least, if you could please scan the QR code and provide feedback. If you are watching on the live feed, then you can just go it would be on the presentation.
It would be on
So
the presentation.
go to the webpage and you can get some feedback there as well. Thank you, guys. Any questions?
You didn't know we were gonna make you work today, did you?
I feel so good. I do, I feel so like,
I know.
I couldn't even like buy my phone, next time I have to do that last. You can't follow that up with crisis planning.
So true. I'm doing everything we just did. Thank you guys so much for being here. I do encourage you, if you do have questions or if you do need additional support, please reach out to the guidance counselors. We've got guidance counselors in each building. Katie is now our social worker at Norton AJH. Jill is housed at Powers and Steel. Both of them are working across the district, but that's kind of where their homes are going to be. So please reach out to any one of us if you have any questions. To those of you at home, thank you for joining in. And this concludes our presentation for today. So thank you guys. No, you're